Alright, in this video, we're going to talk about the solution of today's review. We talk about the continuity and behaviors and the limits, and awesome, like you can see that when there is a picture, the answer is in the picture. So we talk about the continuity when the graph shows no gap, no jump, no hole, right? And you know that it's smooth. You can chase the graph without lifting your pencil. That will be an awesome, smooth, continuous function. But as you can see the picture here, I see I had to lift my pencil. I see the open circle hole. I see the gap. I see the jump. So that tells me this is a discontinuous function. So what you see is what you got. Remember, we talk about a function has the x value in, the y out. So what you see is what you got at the very beginning. We talk about in classroom that when x is 0, what do I see as my y outcome? So when x is 0, you know that I need to look for my y. So when you look up for my y, you know that there is an open circle, which indicate I don't have an outcome. So believe in yourself, the answer do not exist, okay? So what you see is what you got. All right, continue. When you move on to function f of 2, what will be the answer as the outcome? So 2 is my x value in. Do you see a y? Of course, that tells me my y value is 0. We talk about that. Do you see the solid line? Do you see a solid answer? Yes, indeed. So the 2 tells me my y is 0. So what you see is what you got. Moving on. When the function of f of 3, so that means I need to put in 3 for my x, and what you see is what you got. We talk about that. When x equal to 3, do I have an answer? Yes, the answer is right here. Indicate my y, it is 3. So what you see is what you got when we talk about the function x in, y out. Therefore, we move on to the limit. What you see is what you got. Remember, the limit talking about eventually what will be my y value be. You can predict that from the picture. And we talk about the symbol notation. We mentioned about the limit as the picture, which means it's my y value, okay? Now we talk about the x at the location when x equal to 0, but we say that I'm going to look for that from the left side. So what do you see if I choose to stand on the 0 location, but I'm coming from the left side? What do you see my function y? You can predict my limit. So what you see is what you got. In classroom, we mentioned about I'm going to make my picture coming from the left side. I see my picture getting closer and closer and closer. Okay, now you see my graph indicate getting more and more negative, aka my y value, right? So this tells me my limit as x gets closer and closer to 0, but from the left side, my graph, it's become more and more negative. Okay, seeing is believing. Moving on. What will be the difference about the E? The E tells you I'm still looking for the limit, but this time I don't have a particular direction, which means I'm going to look for the limit from left and from the right. What is my location? My location is still at 0, but this moment I'm going to coming from the left side, and also I'm coming from the right side to see, do I have a limit that agree at the same time? So let's see. From the left side, as you can see, my function, my graph y value is getting more and more and more what? A negative infinity. That is from the left side. But how about my limit coming from the right side? So you know that, my graph coming from the left side goes up and down, right? But when I'm getting closer and closer to 0, my limit is almost about to get to 2. Well, you know that negative infinity is not equal to 2. So what you see is what you got. I don't have an outcome. Do not exist. They do not agree with each other. So I don't have a limit. Okay, moving on. What will be the answer for The next one we mentioned about it is the limit again. But what will be the location? I'm looking from 3 as my location, and the plus sign just tells me I'm coming from the right side, positive, coming from the right side. So at 3, you know that my graph, as you can see, my graph is getting more and more positive, up, 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 up. When I get closer and closer to 3, what do you notice? My limit. Oh, my limit will become a 2. So this will be the 2 as the perfect answer. In class, I mentioned about, guys, we got to activate your eagle eye. Part C and part F, they are 2 different things. Part C tells me when I plug in 3, I have a perfect answer as the outcome, okay? But F tells me it's my limit. When X gets closer and closer to one particular number, which means in this way is the 3 from the right side. What you see as my final answer, that it tells me the prediction. My graph will almost get to 2, okay? And that's it. I also have a good discussion about that. Why not is not 3? Well, the 3 kind of like my y value, first come first serve. You will get to 2 before you get to 3. So therefore the perfect answer for F it is 2, okay? All right, G. All right, what we talk about again, it is this moment we are looking for the limit at x equal to 3. What do we talk about? We got to look for from the left and from the right side. So coming from the left side and coming from the right side at 3. So what do we know about that? My graph coming from the left side, my graph, it's almost get to what value? 1. So the left side tells me it's 1. But what happened to the right side? My picture gets closer and closer to 2. Well, as you can see, left and right are not the same. So I don't have a limit. That do not exist. So once again, when there is a picture, the answer is in the picture. All right, last one. What will be the limit? Okay, my favorite part, it is a symbol notation. What will be the limit as x gets more and more negative infinity? So that tells me I'm going to look for my x value. It's getting more and more negative, right? To the left side. So what do you notice my graph? My graph's getting more and more positive, but I bound by this invisible, what do we call, asymptote, horizontal asymptote. So that tells me my limit, it is 1. And that's it. Good. All right. Practice makes better. So let's take a look at another one. So you can see that this function is discontinued because I see the gap, right? I had to lift my pencil to chase the graph. So what you see is what you got. Do we have a perfect answer when x equal to 0? Right here, what you see is what you got. 0. Done. Do I have an outcome when x equal to 2? Well, activate your eagle eye. We have a good argument here. When x equal to 2, what do you see here? A gap. So which tells me I will not have an answer. Do not exist. Believe in yourself, okay? How about when x equal to 3? So x equal to 3, it's right here. Do you have an answer? Yes, indeed. My answer is 0. Perfect. All right, limit. This moment, I'm standing at -1. -1 is right here. I'm going to look for my limits. That tells me I'm going to look for both directions, from the left and from the right. So here we go. From the left, you know my picture gets more and more positive. That tells me it's from the left. How about from the right side? I see my picture gets more and more and more and more what? A negative. So what is that tells me? Left and right side do not equal. One is positive going up, one is negative going down. So that tells me I don't have a limit at -1. Do not exist. All right, moving on. What will be the limit when x equal to 0? Now again, this moment we got to look for both direction. What you see is what you got. At the location here, 0, I'm going to coming from the left side and coming from the right side. Do they agree? Of course. Now, activate your eagle eye. From the left side, my graph gets more and more closer and closer and closer to 0. Good. And how about my right side? From the right side, my graph gets closer and closer to 0. So what you see is what you got. Left side is equal to right side. Both are equal to 0. So you know that I do have a limit, which will be 0. Moving on. What will be my limit as x gets closer and closer to what value? 2. So I'm looking at this location here, but where from where? From where is controlled by the positive, right? So this is telling me I'm only looking at 2. But I need you to tell me coming from the right side, indicate from the right side. So now you see my picture gets closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, more and more, more and more. What do you notice? Negative infinity. And that's what we say. When there is a picture, the answer is in the picture. All right. Last one. When there is a picture, the answer is in the picture. Let's go. What will be the limit when x gets more and more positive? So positive x tells me on the right side. So what do you see as my graph as the outcome? Now, many of you say that, Ms. O, this is part of this too. But remember, my x gets more and more positive. So my picture is right here. What do you notice about my picture behave? That is bound by the invisible line, aka my asymptote. And this moment, my asymptote, it is the y value, which will be 1. So therefore, my limit will be 1. Good. All right. I appreciate everybody's input today, and that was a good discussion about the continuity, the removable, the hold, the jump, the get, and the end behavior, aka to the left, to the right, what do you see my graph behave, my function behave, and the limit eventually, aka my y value, right? So remember the limit, we get to look at the direction from what direction, and when there's no positive or no negative, you get to look from both sides. Okay, and that's all. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.